Hi, hello everybody. So welcome to another The Author. Today we'll be talking about a review for the Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft miniatures, and also the reasons why to the theme and paint scheme of the miniatures I painted on commission for a client. So, first review on the Ravenloft miniatures. I must say that compared to the Chaos Ball miniatures that I painted last time for on commission, these are actually much easier to prepare and paint. Because first things first, the Chaos Ball miniatures, the way they were done was very much for the artistic value of it, meaning that they took the 2D, fantastic 2D pictures and made it 3D into the miniature, and for that reason, there's a lot of detail on the artwork for Chaos Ball that is extremely hard to replicate. It looks good on 2D, but to replicate it on the miniature, like the jersey, team names, and everything, it's just much harder. Whereas for the Ravenloft miniatures, it D&D has this long range of miniatures from past times where they know that the customer base can be total novices to pro painters. So their miniatures are made definitely much with the detail of that in mind. The Chaos Ball miniatures, all of them were made from the 2D perspective, whereas these miniatures, as you can see, they have enough detail, but then it's not so much detail that makes painting a chore, if that comes true, so the details all there is more textured surfaces, and it allows you to apply a certain number of colors without the need, especially with the D&D mythos. A lot of it is very customizable, whereas in Chaos Ball it's very much more, if you're trying to follow the color scheme of the box art, it's very restrictive because you don't know anything about the teams. There's no big lore on it. So if you really wanted to stay true to the history, just in case, you would have to paint in everything exactly the same. Which, so that's the one thing. The other thing is the mode of these D&D miniatures is just catches paint much easier than the Chaos Ball ones. Like, so the Chaos Ball miniatures have this weird thing that they catch paint a bit harder in my view. I felt these miniatures were much easier to paint, and to what it looked like, you didn't even need to put a base coat on the D&D Ravenloft miniatures. I would not suggest it, because I feel like, example, the heroes, they come in this blue color, which is not a good base coat for most colors. So I still sprayed mine, but I felt that that's a nice touch, and the detail is just enough. So overall, I would say D&D miniatures are pretty much a good starting point. The first should always be GW40K, but they are really expensive. So if you had to go for a cheaper route with still nice mold miniatures, I would say start with Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. Although they don't have the details of like a Chaos Ball miniature, but the thing is that they are just easier models to paint and of course prepare, because although they have mold lines, and you have to be careful if you're shaving away the mold lines, for the most part, that if you didn't want to shave them away, they're somewhat well placed where you can get away with it, although it's still visible upon close inspection. Unlike the Chaos Mode miniatures, with some of them you can just see the flash line go, like with the people with the guitars. I think they call them the barbarians or something like that, where their flash lines are really, really obvious. So with that, that's the review for the Ravenloft miniatures basically. So now we'll get into the theme of the miniatures I painted. So let's get into it. First part, we're gonna start with the let's start with the bad side. So let's start with, of course, the hero of our evil side, Istrad himself. So Istrad is a vampire, and I just read the Ravenloft miniature books, so I wanted to keep true to that, and he was based on the traditional vampire, so I gave him I wanted to stick to the black and red, and also the ruby of his family, so I made sure that that was a red ruby. And of course, the important one, if you know his story, is the dagger that he was supposed to be assassinated by, of Baravazi, I think it's called Balvazi, and supposedly the lore goes that the scabbard of this dagger was made from the assassin's first victim, the skin of it. So I decided to look at some pictures of parchment, books made from human skin, and basically this is the kind of color I get from when they are not centuries old, so went for that. And to give him, of course, stick with the traditional vampire colors, and on top of that, gave him Strahd is also a vain person in a way, so I gave him a lot of gold, like this front armor here, a gold but with darker tone, because I usually paint darker tones. And also I wanted his skin had to be white, but I didn't want to be so I gave him the cool white, which is basically using almost like bluish grays to build up to a white, so give him that look, although it's not pure white because I didn't want him to look like a ghost. So that, and also a warm white for his clothes. I feel it's a good contrast. I've been doing this for a few miniatures, so leave it at that. And so basically that's the look I gave him, and of course the white flame at the bottom with the big scabbard at the back with another ruby. I just stuck to a simple color scheme. You got his traditional vampire look with gold to represent the riches, and the red because like I say, his rubies and all that for his family were all basically red. The white flame, basically I felt it just gave a look like only someone powerful and rich could keep something at the bottom hem white all the time, so thought I'd keep it that way. Also it stuck to the whole color scheme of the whole miniature. So there you go, that's Strahd or Bavaria. Next is the werewolf. Now the werewolf, I wanted it to be like, this was the, how in those horror stories and all that from the past, they always had the beautiful lady that turned into a werewolf, and that's what I wanted to go for. So I gave her a very much more somewhat paler skin than the base colors that of flesh tones, and I wanted it to be like a white, like those blonde, those platinum white, it's a beautiful lady but she has white hair and very pale skin. So I thought that a person like that, lady like that, transformed into a a werewolf. So that was the basic paint scheme here, And yes, I also painted the nipples because it was on the model, and I just thought it'd be, I know that I basically think the client is playing with adult base, so decided that why waste the mold there. So I decided to go instead of painting it just like the standard, cover up. And yep, that's it. The long hair. Decided to give this part, which was her hair, which before she turned into a werewolf, her hair. Decided to give it a darker tone and more pure white there, and the rest of it was more like a different tone of white, basically, just to break up the miniature. And that's the werewolf, female werewolf. Next is Baba Yaga, or rather the witch hag. There you go. Now she was an interesting one because I basically went with the lore of Baba Yaga, and I didn't want the miniature basically to be too flashy, because to me she's a witch hag, she lives in the swamps or whatever, or like I was thinking like she used to be a Vistani, which in the Istrad world is like the gypsies that she's been corrupted by dark magic. So I wanted to stick everything like she's been corrupted. So living, if you see here these stories like Baba Yaga and all, they live alone, they no need for fashion and everything, so everything was very earth tone color, like such as the browns, and then the bone color of the twine, and the only thing that she has that she makes herself maybe is this purple shawl, which I could have painted the bottom of the shawl a different color, but I felt like I was about to do it yellow. But I thought to myself, she's living alone, why would she take the time to make something fashionable, she has more time to dedicate to dark magic. So that's what I did. And also I gave her skin add a lot of yellow and let's say, and a dark flesh wash to give it this like almost like the skin that like that, almost like the darkest sense of this color, like aged skin. So like she's just living far too long past, and giving her yellow teeth And just like that bobble of the nose, just putting a bit of watered down red wash to give that whole thing the tie-in look, you know, like you see that. So that's the witch hag, you know, so basically that. And of course the last one is the zombie dragon. Now this one was quite a nice thing to paint, because the whole thing I wanted to give I got to do a bone color, which I always like. Now the client requested I keep the bases black, which black dragon and black base, but I felt that Istra, it just fit more to the Ravenloft world, that it used to be a black dragon, so that was that. But the only thing I had to compromise, basically, if you look at the dead flesh, alright, it's not a very nice pink and all, because, and here's the thing, I did some research, if you look at rotting flesh, if it was my miniature, I would have painted all that flesh there brown, because when flesh starts to decay to a longer and longer, it turns brown and green and all. But because I was painting for a first time client, just in case he does not share my same artistic vision and he's more used to the traditional, I added a bit more red to it, so it was a compromise in a way, but I felt it came out alright, you know. So the flesh is there, you can see the bones again, and you can see the marbling on the flesh, you know. It's just standard that I hope you can see that, the white lines and all that, which is not bone, marbling on meat, you know. And then added a lot of brown dark flesh wash, so that everything just had this this tone that is rotting, you know that. So yep, standard, like the bone has less highlights, so we're using a lot of nice wash techniques, gives you a nice rotting feeling. So that one's that, and there you go, zombie dragon. And oh, just to point out, I decided not to paint like this. Most people like to put this, the eyes have some glow. To me, like a zombie dragon, the eyes fell out, so I also gave it an even darker wash compared to the rest of this flesh here. Like thing dropped down, you can still look into the flesh areas. So that was zombie dragon. And now come the heroes. Now for the heroes, I gave it a theme, and just came, as I say, when I paint, I like to give theme to my miniatures, and I have a backstory. And my backstory is all of them from a in D&D world. They wouldn't know this, but they are communists, basically. So they are called warriors of the lone red star. All right, so, or rather, warriors of the commune. That's right, warriors of the commune. That's what I call them. So this, and came from this, the little red star here, and the fact that the other miniatures I had those red pads. So I just, it tied into the whole thing. So for this character, the Dragonkin warrior, I decided to give him, like, to me, all the warriors, I don't like to paint really rich warriors. So to me, it's like he spent a lot of money on the armor, and that's why the shield, I decided to give all this area. I didn't paint it extra, because it's like, I didn't paint a different color, because I wanted to give a sense that this is practical. Alright, like, who puts gold gildings on armor and then goes fight in it, because it's going to be scratched away. So I stuck to it, like, kept everything nice and basic, but everything is practical, and it looks, I believe it looks nice. So the standard colors for him is that, and then I gave him almost like a bronze kind of armor all around him, just like where most of his money went. It's all very intricate, but all the money was spent there, basically. So the rest of him is that, so he's the Dragonkin warrior, and I gave him the top part here could be interpreted as an armor, but I decided when I looked at pictures and all that, this is probably nicer as bone, so I decided to put that as the bone. And his yellow eyes, lizard-like eyes. So Dragonkin warrior of the commune, warriors of the commune. And then this was the first one I painted for the heroes, and he's a dwarf cleric. So kept it again like the poorer kind of introductory warriors. These are not the great heroes of lore. Decided to give him a dirty blonde hair, and then just from his temple, this net, his scepter, and then just basically a brown as armor, a blue cape, and then of course the red that ties into them being the warriors of the commune. And yeah, just a dwarf warrior, dwarf cleric. There you go. That's that. And the last one is the Human Ranger. So I decided to just I kept thinking she was an elf at first until I started to check that she was actually human. So I decided, that's why you can see that the hair is the kind of like elvish color, because I thought she was an elf. So, and I liked it, I liked the hair color, so I decided not to change it, but instead of her skin color, decided to give it more of a human flesh color instead of a very pale skin color for an elf. And to tie the whole thing in, of course, I just gave her the red shoulder pads, and I just felt like gold armor would just make her stick out. I could have given her the standard armor, but like I said, the client also requested something different. So I was thinking that maybe she's from aristocratic family, that's why she's the only one that can afford like this more elaborate armor, so to speak. Especially with the 2 sabers she got, which is pretty different from the rest of the stuff. So I decided that. And so with that, basically that is the review, and also that's the theme for my miniatures. Thank you very much. Till next word.